Untouchables or the Children of India's Ghetto by Babasaheb Ambedkar. Part 2, Chapter 6 2. The following news item appeared in the Tej of Delhi in its issue of 4th September 1927. The Shiv temple of Vaikom has been desecrated by the H word by their coming too near to the temple. Now, the Hindus of that area have decided that the ceremony of purifying the temple should be elaborately performed at great expense before the place is fit for worship again. The correspondent of Pratap reports the following incident, which appears in its issue of 2nd September 1932. Meerut, August 1932. On the day of Janmashtami, some H-word tried to gain admittance into caste Hindu temple, but nothing came except widespread troubles and unrest. This year, the local Dalit association has decided that if the doors of the temple are not open to them, they will undertake satyagraha. When the Hindus came to know of this, they started making plans to defeat the moves of the H-word. At last, on the night of Janmashtami, the members of the Ashwat community came in the form of a procession and tried to gain access to the temple of the gods. The priests, however, refused them permission to enter and said, "You can have audience of the gods standing outside on the street." Upon this, a great crowd gathered at the place. The priests tried to enter the temple, and thus a clash took place between the two parties, and blows were freely exchanged. The Hindus do not allow the untouchables to enter the Hindu temples. It would be thought that they would allow the untouchables to have their own temples and install therein the image of God. That is a mistake. The Hindus will not even allow that. It is enough to quote two instances. One is from the Pratap of 12th February 1923. In the district of Agra, a Chamar who has seen a Brahmin worshipping the image of Vishnu in his house began to do the same himself. When the Brahmin came to know of this, he was most indignant and, with the help of a number of villages, caught hold of the ill-fated H-word, gave him a sound beating, saying, "How dare you try to win over the god Vishnu?" Finally, they stuffed his mouth with filth and left him. In sheer desperation, the Chamar abandoned the Hindu faith and embraced Islam. The other is from the Hindu of 4th July 1939. A meeting of the Bellary District H-word Advisory Board was held on 29 June 1939 at the collector's bungalow. Mr. A.D. Crombie, CIE-ICS, President of the Committee and Collector, presided. With regard to the grievances of the H-word of Narayan Deva Rakkagiri, including allegations of extraction of forced labor from them and harassment by moneylenders, the committee decided to call for official report with a view of taking action if necessary. The religious disabilities of the H-words residing in Kudathini village were brought to the notice of the committee. It was alleged that though the H-word people constructed a temple in their colony as long as 12 years ago, they could not install the image of God, which was also ready in the temple, owing to the objections raised by the section of the caste Hindus in the place to the H-word taking out the image in procession in the village before the installation. How any attempt to take water from the Hindu well is dealt with by the Hindus can be seen from the following instances. The first one appeared in the Pratap of 12th February 1923. Mahashaya Cheddi Lalji has reported that the Chamar was going for idol worship when on the way he felt thirsty. He cast his own iron pail into a well and drew out some water. Upon this, he was rebuked by a high caste Hindu and then soundly beaten and locked up in a room. As it happened, I was passing by, and when I inquired why this man was being kept under lock and key, the Diwan Sahib replied that this man cast his own pail into our well and wants to profane religion. That even the Hindu women will not hesitate to take part in the assaults committed by the Hindus against the untouchables who dare to take water from the Hindu well is a fact. Compare the following report, which appeared in the Pratap of 26th February 1932. On 19th February 1932, a very tragic incident took place in the village of Pool Bajwan. This happened when Mahashaya Ramlal went to fetch some water from a well, the same well at which on 13th January 1932 some Rajputs had belabored Mahashaya Ramlal and his companion, Pandit Bansilal. At that time, a crowd of Rajput women came up and armed with all sorts of bats and sticks and gave such a sound beating to the Mahashaya that it is difficult to describe. All his body was covered with blood by the time the Rajput women had done with him. At this time, he is admitted in the hospital of Fuklian. That even the support of an officer of government in the exercise of their right to take water from the well and will not save the untouchables from assault is clear from the following incident which happened in the Milap of 7th June 1924. Some days ago, an officer of the Canal Department came to the village of Rahyan in Tehsil Sabha and he ordered some mega untouchables to help in drawing out water from a well. At first, they refused, but the officer rebuked them sternly and forced them to draw water. The next day, the Hindus gathered at the well and sent for the Megha through a chowkidar and asked why they dared to climb up the well. One Megha replied that they were obliged to do so, and it was no fault of theirs. For this cheek, he was attacked by the Hindus with sticks and hands, and until the time of writing this, he is lying unconscious. Although the doctor has declared that the injuries are minor ones, a report of attempted murder and unlawful assembly has been filed with the police. This, however, has been ignored, and the indifference of the police has created a feeling of great insecurity among the Megha people. The villagers are persecuting the Meghas very much. Even their cattle are not allowed to drink water, and all wells and ponds have been closed to them. The untouchables cannot take water from the Hindu well is not all. They must not build a pakka brick well for themselves, even though they may have the money to do so. For having a pakka well for themselves means an attempt to raise themselves to the status of the Hindus, which is contrary to the established order. The Milap of 6th June 1934 reports the following incidents. Lala Ram Prasad Ji, Secretary of the Achut Committee, Punjab, has written to the following effects. During this hot season, complaints are being received from everywhere that the supply of water is becoming a great problem. The depressed class people who have no wells of their own sit near the well with their vessels in their hands. If someone is kind enough to pour out some water, well and good, otherwise they still sit helpless. In some places, however, no one is allowed to pour out water to these people even for money, and if even one does so, mortal fights ensue. Not only is the use of the village wells forbidden to them, but they are not even allowed to make wells of their own with their own money. To the same effect is the incident reported in the Tej of 21st April 1924. The chamars of the village Opad numbered about 250. About a month and a half ago, they gave up drinking water out of the leather bags of the Muslim water carriers on the suggestions of the Arya Samaj Pandits. And now they are in great difficulties about their water supply. The Jats of the village not only refuse to let them draw water out of the village wells, but do not even let them make their wells of their own. The poor chamars are living on water from ponds and ditches. Yesterday, Dr. Sukhdevji, secretary of the Dalit Sudhar Committee, came to make investigations in Upad and saw everything with his own eyes. He found the condition of the chamars abject beyond words and their persecution by the Jats a real fact. The following is from the Times of India dated 9th May 1931. In the Baroda state, the untouchables are supposed to be better treated than in the adjoining British territory because the state has made laws recognizing the equality of the Antija with caste people. And yet, in Padras Taluka the other day, the standing crop of a poor Antija woman was fired and she herself brutally assaulted because she dared to send her little son to the local primary school. Now comes a tale of woe from Chanashma in Kadi Prant, where an artisan well has been sunk and built with the labor of the Anchadras who were promised the use of the well. But when the well was ready for use, they were first flatly told that it was not for them. And when they complained to the Punch, the latter generously allowed them to lay a pipe 500 feet long, at the end of which they could have a tap all for themselves. Now, an unexpected owner of the land of the tap had cropped up, so the pipeline was taken somewhere to the near local tank. But this meant pollution of the tank, and therefore of the dirty linen washed there. So the tap was accommodated elsewhere. But did this mean the end of the trouble? No. The enraged caste people have cut the pipeline several times and the Antajas are without water to drink. How very adequate, to use Gandhi's term, must the untouchables feel the treatment given to them by their co religionists? Mr. Sanjana, in a letter to the Times of India of the 7th November 1928, reports what Mr. Thakkar saw in the year 1927 regarding the awful plight of the untouchables in the matter of water. In Balsad Taluk, Mr. Thakkar saw a Bhangi woman waiting near a well for some merciful people to give her some water. She had waited from morning till noon and none had given her any. But the most exquisite touch of spirituality is revealed in the matter and manner of giving that water to the Bhangis. It cannot be poured directly into their pots. Any people doing so would get polluted. Says Mr. Thakkar, once our teacher Chunni Bhai had shown the temerity of pouring water direct from his bucket into a bhangi's pot, and he had received a stern warning in consequence. Master, this sort of thing won't be tolerated here. A small cistern is built below the slope of the well. Anyone who is moved by pity may pour some water in the cistern. A bamboo pipe just out of the cistern, and the bhangi woman must pour her water through the pipe and into her pot, and it may get filled in an hour or so. For, adds Mr. Thakkar, it is only the unwanted water remaining over in the bucket of the woman drawing it, that it, as a rule, thrown into a cistern, and that too if she takes pity on the waiting Bhangi woman. The end.